There's no doubt that in this day and age, localized entirely within the Five Nights at Freddy's fandom, there's a whole lot of buzz about the games, the books, and their connections to one another. And today we're going to be taking a little dive into the conversation. But I'm not alone. I'll be joined by a dear friend of mine who's pretty active in the fandom and quite well versed on the books. Take it away.
Hello, I'm a friend. I have a complex relationship with the Fnaf franchise and the books, and I'm very happy to join today. Thanks for having me. Today we're just gonna talk about the books in general, good, bad, kinda weird, really weird. An easy way to start is Canonicity, a famously uncontroversial subject. but anyways, I think that the Stitch Wraith arc from Fazbear Frights, as well as all of Tales from the Pizzaplex, are canon. Some contest this because of discrepancies, some logical, others just thanks to misconceptions about the books. I think it's worth pointing out that every franchise has discrepancies once they grow big enough. But also, I think with this franchise in particular, it's really not a great way to judge things. We all know all three of the Silver Eyes books share a universe, but they have some pretty major contradictions, like Charlie being 17 in 1995 in Book 1, when it's later said that the real Charlie was born in 1980. And the first book said that Freddy's opened years after Fredbear's closed, but that's later made impossible, as the fourth closet says that Charlie was kidnapped at Fredbear's in 1983, before Freddy's closed in 1985. For a recent thing, E.C. Myers talked about The Week Before, a confirmed prequel, and Myers said that he kept things consistent because he likes to avoid breaking canon with how Freddy's looked, which is nice, that's really cool. But, the way he said it kind of implies that Scott would not have cared if Myers did change how the pizzeria looks. Like if Myers had written it so there was a wrestling ring that Ralph says they occasionally put the animatronics in, would Scott have stopped him?
That is an excellent point. And that goes to show that there can be some smaller inconsistencies that just go under the radar but don't technically change the story. But then there are larger details that affect and separate the continuity, such as also in the Silver Eyes trilogy and between it and the games, which share many characters and plot points but take place in different continuities. One of the ways we know this is through the story of Circus Baby. In theory, both game and novel Baby share a lot of things in common. The general design scheme, the fact that they were possessed by the soul of Elizabeth Afton when she was killed by Circus Baby, their role as manipulator, as antagonist. But where the two split to the point where they can't possibly happen in the same timeline involves their creation and what they do in their story. Circus Baby in the games was created by Afton to hunt children, as shown in her blueprints. And this is what leads her to killing Elizabeth at a party when she is alone with her. In the novels, Circus Baby is built to be the adult Charlie, is stolen by William, is altered by him, and then kills Elizabeth in his workroom. And while game Circus Baby keeps circling at parties and returning to Circus Baby's rentals to continue raising Afton's ever-growing body count, novel Baby instead is placed into a closet in Henry's basement and stays there until the end of the second book. There's no way that these two sequences of events can exist in the same timeline. Perhaps there could be if there were two Circus Babies, but they are supposed to be the same character, possessed by the same soul. So, different continuities. The two are also drastically different design-wise, with illusion discs giving novel Baby the ability to appear in her childish clown form, while game Baby just looks like this. She even gets deconstructed and rebuilt, showing this form isn't just an illusion. And there's the matter of fitting a child in her belly compared between a robust clown and an average-sized woman. Another character who proves that these are different continuities would be William Afton, or specifically the sequences of events involving him post-Springtrapping. In Fnaf 3, William Afton is spooked by the children's souls and driven into the old Spring Bonnie suit, which has a spring lock failure and leads to him becoming Springtrap. In the Silver Eyes, it is Charlie, Henry's daughter, who sets off the suit while Will is wearing it. Now, this is both a pretty big and pretty small difference, but nothing compared to what comes next. In the games, Springtrap rots behind a sealed wall for years before being uncovered and dragged to Fazbear's Fright, a horror attraction made to reflect on the history and stories of Freddy's. He has become moldy and rotten, his body a mummified corpse under the suit. The attraction catches on fire, either a result of arson or shoddy ventilation, but Springtrap survives. He is later seen in Pizzeria Simulator as Scraptrap, who looks noticeably different than Springtrap, but that might be one of those little inconsistency things. He is brought into the pizzeria unaware that it is a trap by none other than Henry to burn him and every other loose end at Freddy's, and in the end, they all roast in the fire. In the books, William becomes Springtrap, but he doesn't actually die. He survives in the suit, to the point where he's running around in the Twisted Ones, and then actually gets out of it, and is now a semi-mummified man in the fourth closet. Where, at the end, he also burns, but instead of in a fake pizzeria, he burns in a furnace dragged in by his own suffering creations. For these two Williams to exist in the same timeline, William would have had to climb out of Springtrap, burnt to death in the furnace, climb out of the furnace, get himself spring-locked again, sealed behind a wall. You get the picture. They are similar scenarios, but not the same.
To do a bit of compare and contrast. In the Fazbear Fright story, what we found, they do a whole adaptation of FNAF 3. It does stuff that contradicts the events of 3, like removing the phone lines, and it does not last, 5 nights. So, the story cannot be canon. In The Man from Room 1280, another Fazbear Fright story, William has 2 arms when in Pizza Sim he had 1 arm fall off. That's a discrepancy, but it's not anything extreme.
Another change in detail could be some of the differences between Security Breach and Ruin, small ones such as endoskeleton designs, or noticeably larger ones like the location of Bonnie's green room, which was not in the original build of the game, and like how the door at the bottom of the stairs beneath Bonnie Bowl used to line up with Vanny's room on the map, but then was changed to be used for Cassie to reach Bonnie Bowl and Ruin. But that's in between games, not in between games and books. But that does go to show that continuity isn't always 100%, even in direct sequels.
Now, the actual continuity stuff is only one reason lots of people dislike the idea the books are canon. The other is just that they tend to get really, really, really damn weird. The most recent thing being Return to the Pit, with the whole Oswald gets sent to a section of the ball pit that is a video game world, where he gives kids cake and causes the yellow thing to explode, and this alters reality so the MCI never happened. And some of the classics, like Fazgoo. But we should probably keep in mind, this franchise is really damn weird in general. Like, we've grown to accept it, but Sister Location made it so William built a bunch of advanced kidnapping robot clowns in the 80s. In Ruin, we have a rabbit mask that allows us to phase through physical objects. Help 1 and 2 has Giant Vanny. I think we should just accept that, Scott's crazy. The guy admitted in the new interview that he came up with Springtrap Mpreg and didn't realize that was funny until long after.
True, and I think part of that has to do with how disjointed some of the book's stories can feel to the world established in FNAF. Such as in the case of Gumdrop Angel, a standout story when it comes to the oddities hidden in Fazbear Frights, in which the main character, a young woman named Angel, ends up eating the gumdrop nose off of a candy sculpture to spite her sister, and then becomes one. Cause apparently Freddy's has the technology, or specifically an elaborate candy mixture that allows them to turn children into candy and then serve them to incoming parties, as they intended to do with Angel's sister before Angel took the bait. Where the dissonance comes into play is how starkly different the mechanics in this story work to the games. In the games, the world seems to be very much like our own, save that sometimes people die and they don't move on. There's a sort of grounded notion in that, though. Many people believe in ghosts and an afterlife, so the idea of haunted robots doesn't seem too far-fetched. But people being forcibly transformed into candy, it feels more like something that would come out of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory than Freddy's. But taking that into account and then directly comparing that to the games, you can see why that would lead to some questioning on the canonicity of the books, or at least specific stories.
I would also recommend reading the full books themselves. Not all of them bad, in fact, I rather enjoy a good deal of them. Hell, sometimes just because a story is really weird does not mean it's bad. And also, another reason you should look into the full thing is because it's better to fully read something before judging it. Sometimes something will sound less weird in full context. Other times, especially in FNAF, it will sound even weirder in context. Like, do you guys remember that story where a game dev gets a robot family who use illusion discs to appear like humans? In the full context, that is controlled by someone over the radio named DJ Dan the Music Man, who works at Fazbear Entertainment, and the inspiration for the games was Fazbear Entertainment jump-scaring a random dude with just stuff around the house. They did all that instead of just, hiring someone normal.
The bottom line is, however, that elements from the books have appeared in the games. A rather large one, in fact. And some of the books seem to answer questions about the game's lore in ways that haven't been clarified in-game. Like the idea of fear gas, which has been speculated about but only seemingly confirmed recently in Tales from the Pizzaplex. And with that, the bigger question is, what could it mean for the games if the books are canon? Specifically, the larger, more important parts of the books. I think it's best if we don't discuss them impreg any further. Some things in this world are better left where they lie. But details like Fazbear Fright's bringing back and then killing off Afton for good, even if it was for a short return, do seem like key points, even if the ending is the same. If not for Afton's sake, then posing the idea that if a vengeful spirit is angry enough, even fire won't be able to purge it, or those it drags along with them.
Some implications are obvious, like the fact that Andrew is the one you should not have killed, not Cassidy. What would this imply for Golden Freddy and UCN? Well, there's theories. Some suggest that Cassidy is trying to stop Andrew or permakill William. Others, like myself, think that they're both torturing William. Cassidy just let go while Andrew cannot. And as mentioned above, it does help settle William's precise fate. He was able to get on a slight bit after UCN, but was permakilled after. Some have wondered, but does this mean Pizza Sim's ending is undermined? Not really. Afton lives, but it sympathizes that the guy was barely clinging to reality after Pizza Sim. And by the end, Charlie has still passed on, and William is still dead. Whereas if Henry had done nothing, both of them would still be running around. So, even if indirectly, Henry did get most of what he wanted in the end, aside from the place being forgotten.
On the flip side, this means that the one you shouldn't have killed, who was more so introduced to us in Ultimate Custom Night, was realized and met his end in a book, in the epilogue specifically, and this wasn't ever telegraphed in the games. Save that the one you shouldn't have killed didn't return again. And by security breach, they were still teasing Cassidy. So, I can see where the confusion lies. So what have we learned? Well, firstly, the books are very strange. And secondly, they hold key information for the franchise. That includes the games. Now, up until this point, the story of the games has worked well enough that it stood on its own. But it is possible that in the future we might arrive at a situation where the books become mandatory to understand key elements. What do you think about that?
I would say they already became kind of essential, but with Secret of a Mimic, that might change soon. It was a pleasure doing this video with you, even if it's a tad short. I think that the situation with the books are interesting. As said before, would recommend reading them. They are interesting for reasons both good and bad, and imply stuff for the larger series as a whole. And, again, thanks for having me.
The pleasure was mine, and I hope to have you back soon. Well, I think this wraps up this little talk on the books. I hope you got something to think about, and thank you for watching.